Okay, I think it's time to start now. Can you please tell me if you can hear me, if you can see me? So, please text something in the chat box. You can text. So, text number 1 if you can see me well. Text number 2 if you can hear me well. Today we are going to discuss how to save time while planning lessons, and besides we are going to talk about aims of our students, because to my mind it is the most important part of teaching. So we follow to the students' aim and we get the results, we get more results, okay? So I don't see anything in chat box. Leticia, nice to meet you here. So can you hear me well? Can you see me well? Can I start? Okay, that's great if you can see me well. So if there is some technical problem, just try to refresh the page, okay? Usually it helps with this service. Last time, so this is my second webinar actually. The first one was about learning how to Google, and I think it was not very successful, and I tried to consider my mistakes, and today I'm going to be better, as I promised. While we are waiting for some people to join, I want to tell you one little thing, that even if we plan our lessons, if we write lesson plans very quickly and we write them maybe in detail, so write very good lesson plans, all the time we must be ready to change it. For example, today one of my students, so her aim is to improve her grammar. Actually, she can speak pretty fluently, but she makes a lot of mistakes. She travels to London pretty often. She has some friends there, and she just wants me to correct her mistakes all the time, and I usually prepare some activities. After the activities, I give her some feedback. And today she started the lesson with some words like, okay, I need to review irregular verbs for past simple. That's it. And all that we were doing, the whole lesson was just, we opened the table with irregular verbs and we were making sentences. So I chose a verb and she made a sentence, and I chose another verb and she made a sentence again. So sometimes even the perfect lesson plans can fail. This happens when you teach one-to-one online classes. If I remember my last webinar, I think it was like a lecture and it was a little bit boring. So it was something like this. I want to show you a video about 1 minute long, okay? So let's watch this video and then I will ask you to do me a favor, okay?
1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone, the Great Depression, passed the, anyone, the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered, raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly...
Yes, sorry, I forgot to tell you. Maybe I will go back a little bit. You should tap the screen. You tap the screen and the sound appears. Okay, yes, this video has a sound, so maybe we shall watch again. Sorry.
Anyone? The Great Depression passed the... Anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which... Anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone?
Okay. So I hope you could watch this with the sound. It was similar to my last webinar, and I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. So, people, do you promise to let me know if I become like him? Can you just tag me, stop being boring? It's not interesting to listen to you. Okay? Okay, great. I see that mostly we have ladies here. Nice to meet you, ladies. Can you please let me know where are you from? Because I know that there are people from different countries, and when I was choosing the time for the webinar, yes, I tried to fit different time zones, okay? I see that there are some people from Russia, and I know that Leticia is from Brazil, and okay, Ukraine, great, okay. So today we are going to learn how to choose suitable materials. Also, we are going to know how to organize the stages of the lesson and to follow the aim of your student and to make a usable layout which you can use for your lesson planning, okay? So why learn this? I think that many people, when they count how much they earn teaching 1 hour, they are mistaken, because you count just this hour when you're teaching and you don't think about time you spent for planning your lesson or time you spent for correcting students' homework, checking students' homework, okay? So you should be careful and count this. And if you learn to plan lessons quickly, I think you will save a lot of your time and you can earn much more money, okay? Who teaches you? It's me. So I've been teaching for about 15 years, so I am pretty experienced in lesson planning. And I like working with one-to-one classes. I like teaching one-to-one classes, and I know a lot of pitfalls, and I know some tips, and I have the good strategy for planning lessons, which usually works with almost any situation. Actually, it doesn't matter if you teach one-to-one classes or if you teach groups, if you work online or if you work in classroom, okay? Who learns? I think here we have teachers who want to improve their skills and who want to work more effectively, and teachers who want to earn more money. So I think you are there and you're going to listen to me. Yes, my name is Vera, and I'm a teacher of English, and I'm here because I want to show you how to plan your lessons, devoting all your free time to it, because you have families, you have friends, you have your hobbies, and I'm sure that you have something like you want to spend your time not only working. Okay, so this I hope this webinar will help you to plan lessons more effectively and quickly. When I did my last webinar, I thought like, okay, my webinar must be for 1 hour, and I tried to make it longer, but it's against my principles. Okay, when I watch webinars, I hate it when people speak about nothing. So today maybe the webinar will be just like 30 minutes or less, something like this, but I want just to tell you only necessary information. Okay. Before we start talking about lesson planning, let's think a little bit. Can you tell me what is the most difficult thing in planning lessons for you? It can be, for example, searching for the information you can use in the lesson, or maybe time management. It's difficult for you if you work with a group, for example, to imagine how much time you spend on this or that activity, especially if you are a beginning teacher. Or it may be with a lack of stages for your lessons, so maybe you don't know exactly what stages are in the lesson, or maybe it's difficult for you to find the activities. So can you please text in chat what is the most difficult thing in planning lessons for you? I think each of us have something. When I just started, for me it was very difficult to Google for some materials. That's why my first webinar was about Googling. I wanted to share some tips with teachers, because I think if you have some information, if you have some materials, then it's easy to think of activities, and it's easier with time management. So for me, finding the materials was the most difficult thing, because sometimes textbooks are very boring. So I'd like to know the most difficult things for you. What is the most difficult? Can you please answer in chat? Yeah, speaking head is pretty funny, but I'd love some interaction. Okay, time management and finding the materials. Yes. Some specific videos, materials about the subject. Yes, that's actually, we devoted a part of my last webinar to this, yes. Okay, good, thank you very much for sharing. So now I want you to think again, and I want you to tell me what is the most important thing in lesson planning. So when you start planning your lesson, what comes first to your mind? Like grammar topic maybe, or warm-up activity, or output, or what is the most important? Or maybe you want to write every step, every single word in your lesson. Or maybe when I just started working independently and teaching my own classes, so the most important thing for me was to write down every activity, and very important thing was to have extra activities in case if I finish everything what I planned and I have nothing to do with my student, so I must have had some extra activities. Okay, I'm searching one song with a subject. Yes, Leticia, I see. Thank you very much for sharing. Looking for the tasks which will be interesting for the students is not difficult, but yes, Googling for the tasks. However, if you know what kind of stage you're going to teach, and if you know the task for the stage you're looking for, then it can be a bit easier. We are going to talk about materials today a bit later, and I think I will give you tips. So, I think we all know this author, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He wrote a nice book, Little Prince. I think everyone has read this book, and I read it twice, once for myself and the second time with my child. So he said, a goal without a plan is just a wish, and I completely agree with him. And this saying makes me think and say, a lesson plan without a goal is just trash. So today I want to attract your opinion to your students' goals and your student aims, because thanks to this we can achieve good results, especially if you teach one-to-one classes, or even if you work with a group. Some students, they aim at passing the test. Some students, they aim at improving their speaking. Some students aim at improving business English. Okay, so you must always follow the aim of your students. Do you agree with the quotes? His quote and my quote? Okay, it's not my quote, it's my idea actually. It's my main principle in teaching. Okay, yes. Thank you very much for communicating with me. I'm still a little bit shy, and I think that maybe people are bored and they are not listening to me, so I'm trying to get some feedback from you. Now I think we will start with this. So, every lesson has its stages, okay? Of course, we start with some warm-up. Then, for example, if it's PPP, we present the materials and we practice the materials, and there is some time for output section. Or if it's task-based learning, which is my favorite approach, so we give the task, yes, then we explain the grammar or some new language, and then we also wait for some output. Okay, so those are the stages of the lesson. Now I want you to think about planning the lesson. So imagine that you are supposed to think about the stages like freer practice, about the output and introduction. You should have some controlled practice in your lesson. Of course, you should remember about your aim. Tatiana, thank you very much. You should remember about the aim of the student. Of course, there is some input. Can you please put the actions in order and write me in chat like 1, 6, 5, 3, 2, 4, something like this, So it's probably not the correct order because I just created the numbers. Can you please think and write your answers? What is number 1 when you plan your lesson? What do you start with? What is the first stage? Not like you're teaching the lesson, but how you plan, okay? Yes, aim. Aim is number 1. I agree. We think about some introduction, some warm-up, right? We have to activate our students' schemata. We have to use their knowledge, and we have to create some context. What is the next? So you think about aim. You keep the aim in your head, then you create some warm-up. What is the next stage? What do you do next? Do you give some practice, or maybe it's time for input? Yeah, I'm keeping silent because I'm looking that people are texting. Okay, yes, controlled practice. Freer practice, input. Okay, I'm looking at your answers in chat box. Okay, ladies, that's great. Thank you very much for working. Here is my opinion. Here is my way. Here is how I plan my lessons, okay? I go backwards while planning my lessons, okay? First, I think about my aim. Okay, about input. Input is new language. For example, you want to teach the verb to be, and input, it's you explain. For example, I am a doctor. Sorry. I am 25. He is beautiful. And then you say like subject to be plus noun, subject to be plus adjective. So to be, am is are. You pronounce it this way. So input, it's when you input information into your lesson. It's just introduction of new language. When you focus on meaning, yes, MFP. So meaning, form, pronunciation. Meaning, form, pronunciation. This is input. So first I think about the aim. Then I think what output can lead to my aim. Then it's controlled practice, which controlled practice can make the correct output, then input, how I can give input for this controlled practice, what freer practice can be before the input, and introduction. So we are going to discuss the stages in details, okay? But before this, I want to attract your attention to materials, yes? When we have some materials saved somewhere in the books, or maybe in your Google Drive, or just at your computer, you have some folders, okay? Having your materials organized helps you easily access them every time when you're planning the lesson. So materials, it's a kind of spaceship, okay, which is taking you to the aim of your student as well. It is a basement of all your lesson plans. So, I'm planning the course for teachers who want to teach online one-to-one classes. And there are several lessons in this course about how to organize your materials and how to look for materials in Google, okay, because this really can save you a lot of time. So imagine, now I'm going to open folder in computer or in Google Drive with some materials, okay? Now we are going to make a lesson plan together. So the aim of your student is speaking for traveling. I think we can make some drawings here. So the aim is speaking for traveling. I think I should have chosen some lines. Maybe. Okay. So the level of your student is elementary. Okay. Here are some folders. So you have a folder with sightseeing. You have a folder with some activities for planning a trip. And you have a folder at the airport. Also, you have some adjectives, you have some information about ecotourisms and seasons and where. Okay, so those are my real folders, and I took them from my Google Drive. Okay, I just it's not a screenshot, but I tried to make it for you. So you have the task now. You have to choose one or two folders. Can you hear me well? Can you please send a plus if you hear me well, okay? Because okay, I see. Because the video paused for a while and I thought maybe there was some technical problem. Your task is to choose one or two folders you can teach your students if you are supposed to teach present continuous for future actions. Present continuous for future actions. So, speaking for traveling, elementary level, what folder would you like to choose? 1, 2, you can text the number, okay? 3, 4, 5, 6. So choose 1 or 2 folders. Now you're going to make a lesson plan for a student of an elementary level. You're going to teach present continuous for future actions. Choose 1 or 2 folders. Yes, planning a trip is a good idea. Great, you are pretty experienced teachers. That's cool. I'm very glad to see your answers. Yes, planning a trip is going to be my choice. And probably I would choose seasons and where. Seasons and where, because sightseeing is a good idea too, but if you have enough time, so maybe if you work with a group, you don't have enough time to cover all the materials. Why seasons and where? I think it's good for an elementary level student to know what kind of clothes he is going to take with him for a holiday, to pack his bag. Okay? So now we are going to plan a lesson, and you remember that we should go backwards. We think sightseeing, yes, I agree, it can be sightseeing. Anyway, you know your student. Yes, when you're planning for your student, you know what he or she knows already. So it may be with sightseeing as well. Sightseeing is good too. Oh, oops, let me tick it. I agree. Because if it's about planning a trip, he can tell you that he can tell you about some places in a town or in a country which he is going to visit. That's right. But sightseeing I would probably use for going to do something, for teaching this structure, going to do something. Okay? So we remember that we are going backward. Now we are going to think about the aim. So if our aim is speaking for traveling, yes, so most of the chosen topics must be connected with traveling somehow. That's why when we are teaching present continuous for future intentions, for future actions, we must think about traveling. Okay? Can you think about output? So if you want to teach present continuous for future, and if you want your student to think about if you are thinking about speaking for traveling, so what kind of output would you like to see, would you like to get from your students? What sentences he is supposed to say after you finish the lesson? What do you want him to learn? Okay, him or her, let's say him. What do you want your student to learn? Can you please text me an example of a sentence? So, present continuous for future actions. Traveling, maybe planning a trip, or maybe going sightseeing. Do you have any ideas? Yes, I want you to make a sentence you want to get from your student. For example, I am doing something next week, okay, next week, but connected to traveling, okay? Yes, next Sunday I'm seeing my granny. Okay, so you want to use some present continuous, and you want him to use some verbs. Yes, some verbs and present continuous connected to the traveling. So here is what I think about. So it's about planning a trip. telling about a future trip, future actions using present continuous. For example, yes, I'm flying away next week. That's great. I'm bringing a camera with me. I'm visiting this or that museum. I'm going hiking. Okay, this is the kind of output I want to hear from my student. So, if I want him to say the sentences like this, I must give some controlled practice before. So I must give some task for controlled practice, right? Because if I want correct sentences in his output, there must be some controlled practice. For example, I am thinking about playing a game like this snowball, right? I'm bringing my camera to take pictures. I'm bringing my camera to take pictures and my boots to hike. I'm bringing my camera to take pictures and my boots to hike, and sunscreen to sunbathe, or maybe swimsuit to swim. Here I'm going to use this folder about seasons and where, and probably find some useful vocabulary here. So your student is practicing present continuous for future intentions, plus maybe getting to learn some new materials. Okay, now you're supposed to think about input. What do we do in our input stage of the lesson? What kind of activities, or maybe it's just explanation? How do you present new language? How do you explain new language? Can you please answer in chat box? Maybe if you use PPP, you just put the sentences on the whiteboard, okay? Or maybe if you use TTT, maybe you find some text with some grammar, yes, and you ask your student to underline similar sentences. Or in TBL, it may be just some exercise. You ask your student to do this exercise. So what do you do in the input stage? It's okay, I'm still here waiting for the answers. I see that you're typing something. This chat box shows me that you're typing. I'm not sure who is typing, but someone is typing. Yes, context. That's right, Yulia. Context is very important. I like it. It's impossible to work with language without context, right? Do you agree? Because even when I worked as a translator, or now, for example, when some of my friends ask me to to translate something and give just one sentence, I'm always asking for the context. It's annoying for them, but I can't work without context. Context is very important. Yes, CCQs, Natalia, that's a good idea. You elicit the correct answers, and then you concept check the answers. Yes, that's right. Very good. It's very good, especially if you work with a group. Sometimes with one-to-one classes, concept checked questions, they can be a little bit boring, but working with a group, concept checks are just great. Okay, so this is what I can imagine for input. So I can just show, like in PPP, so I can just show how to use, or I give my examples and I attract the attention to the form. I usually focus on meaning, form, pronunciation. My mind is quicker than my language. Then I give some examples. Okay, so before I give input, I usually give some free practice to my student. So I give some kind of hints about grammar we are going to study. Okay, and I ask him the questions like, what are you bringing on holiday? And I see maybe the student already knows this grammar and he wants he just shows that he is familiar with his grammar, and then probably I will have to make my tasks a bit more difficult. Or maybe I see that in this free practice I can see that maybe my student has problems with to be, so I have to focus on to be first before going to present continuous. This happens sometimes, especially if you have new students. And of course, introduction, it's just some warm-up where we think of a holiday. I ask some questions about where are you going. So if it's one-to-one class, or I may show some video for a warm-up, showing some trip, some holiday, person picking and asking like, what are we going to talk about now? If you have a group, you can make some dialogues for warm-up. Yes, so actually there are a lot of activities, and today our topic is not about that. So, this is my perfect layout. I have this, sorry, I'm not a good drawer. I have this kind of, maybe, okay, no, sorry, I'm trying to, okay, I have this kind of table just in my Google document, or you can have it in Word. And this is how my lesson goes. So introduction, free practice, input, control practice, output, and homework, if you give homework to your students. And of course you always remember about your aim. And here I write some activities. I think about time management. I make some notes, maybe some links to the videos, or maybe links to some articles or online exercises, because I teach online, but you can make some other notes, maybe some extra activities or questions. And I don't have these interactions, but I thought about you. Maybe if you work in groups, so interactions like student to student, like working in pairs or working in groups, or open class discussion, okay, for each activity. If you use this kind of layout, it usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes, not more. So you just think of your aim and output, control practice, input. You choose the activities from your folders. You just make quick notes. If you are a beginner, complete beginner, maybe it's a good idea to write down your questions, okay, just every question, especially for CCQs, and write down your instructions. It's a good idea for beginners, but for more experienced teachers, I think you can just make some notes. For example, introduction, warm-up, watch the video, answer the question, free practice, ask this question, input, focus on M50 of present continuous, like controlled practice, answer this question, output, like discuss this topic, that's it. And usually it goes really, really quickly, and I had a couple of teachers who I helped with lesson planning, and they gave me feedback that it was good. It was really, really helping when they started using this kind of layout. So you can, actually this is my perfect layout. You can create yours, okay, which will be more comfortable and more convenient for you to use. So I just choose the materials from my folders, or just Google for some materials, for some videos, for some texts, or just activities. There are a lot of good websites for, so I think it's not going to be a problem. Yeah, actually we are done with the most important part. But before we finish, I want to tell you some more things. So I like this quote too: the road is made by walking, walking makes the road. This is about the student, okay? Only walking person makes his road, and the same about student. If your student is motivated, if your student is ready to work, so then teachers, we are just guides, okay? We are just guides through the road to success. Do you agree that we are just guiding? Because we can't put this information, this knowledge into the head of our students, right? So it's up to them to work, and we guide them through the jungle of English language. If you learn to plan quickly, then you will get more. So you will quickly plan, and then you will teach your lesson and earn your money for the lesson, and leave some free time for having more students, for having more classes in one day. Yes, and I think it's important. Of course, it's very good when we work for pleasure. It's very good when we work to see the students' results. But when we get paid for our work, it's much more pleasant. Okay? Before we okay, yes, thanks God I have my slides. I have almost forgotten. So aim is the most important. So aim of my students, it rules the flow of the lesson. So if my student is studying English for accounting, then we will study the tenses and other grammar parts, and I will connect them to accounting somehow, and we will learn more vocabulary connected to the accounting, and homeworks will be based on this aim. So my student will have to write some accounting. Okay, sorry, I think I've talked too much. My student will write some reports and all that stuff. And aim of my trainees is the most important thing. So it sets the tone to the course of my consultations. When people come to me and say, like, I need your help, I want to be a good teacher, it's not going to lead anywhere. But when a teacher comes to me and says, like, I have this problem, I want this result. Okay, so we see the aim and we start working with this aim. And usually it works, yes. Usually it is a success. When you have the aim and when you follow the aim, it is a success. Before we finish, let's have a quick look at what we learned, at what we have learned today. So the most important, the main steps of the lesson. You focus on the aim, then output. Yes, aim is your main lighthouse. Output, result is a step to the aim, okay? And in order to have good output, you have to give controlled practice. It leads to correct output. And before you give the controlled practice, there is some input where you explain meaning, form, and pronunciation. And before this, there is some free practice, which allows you to test your students' knowledge, and of course some introduction to warm up your students to activate the schemata. Okay, so ladies, I'm done. That was it actually. If you have any questions, you're welcome. We still have some time, I think 15 minutes. The platform will allow us to talk for 15 more minutes. You can find me in Instagram, and I think that you follow me in Instagram, so you know my account, and you got the invitations to the webinar from my email. About revision and recycling. So Yulia has asked a question about revision and recycling. My lesson plans. Okay, I think I can't demonstrate my screen here, but maybe just a moment, maybe I can make some picture, like a screenshot. Just a moment. I will try a screenshot of some of okay, I don't know what's copy. Probably I have. Just a moment. Let me try to make a screenshot and show it to you. Maybe I can do it. So going back to you and picture. Let's try to download the picture. No. We will upload. Okay, here. And okay. This is something like this. Okay, I have all my links, all my notes, which I saved. This is not lesson plan. Here I just write the topic which I'm going to teach and the number of lessons and the dates, because I have to count when my student is going to have the last lesson. And okay, this is a little bit intimate, sorry, because it is a mess actually. Maybe for people who don't work with it, it can be a mess. So this is a kind of textbook for me, Yulia. So I know what we have already covered. And before I finish my lesson, I make some notes for myself during the lesson. For example, if I see that the student has mistakes with there is, there are, or never uses it, or the student needs to review, for example, some questions with present simple, okay, then I just make my notes, and when I plan the next lesson, I have a look at what we have already covered, and I try to put one or two activities in the beginning of the lesson for revising the information, only when it's really necessary, because if I see that the student is successful in something, I don't get back to that topic again. We just go forward. I want to scroll up the chat because maybe you have some other questions. Leticia, thank you very much for this feedback. It took me several years to develop this kind of lesson plan, this kind of layout, and it really works for me, and it works for many other teachers. Some time ago I had my school, so I recommended to teachers who worked with me to use this layout for their lesson plans, and it worked for them too. So I hope it will help you as well. Okay, if you have no questions, then that's the end. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for your feedback, and I hope the webinar was helpful. So I'm not very good at saying goodbye, I think. It was nice having you here. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for the feedback. We will talk in my Instagram, so feel free to leave some comments. Have a good evening, have a good day, or good night if it's late in your country. See you again someday. Bye-bye.